This is not at all the kind of place I could ever have imagined ending my life in. 40 houses, a hotel, 2 churches, a fish and chip shop, and what might be the last public toilets before Antarctica. I was born on an island the same size but most of the world away, so I suppose it rates as some sort of coincidence that the person who walked out of the stall as I stood doing battle with the hand dryer the Tuesday of last week was a man who had once threatened to kill my brother. He didn't speak. He didn't so much as pretend to wash his hands. By the time I had managed to dry my own, he was long gone. Which reminds me, there's never any soap in the last public toilets before Antarctica. I would complain, but there's no one to complain to. Anywhere. On the back of the door of the stall that the man who didn't wash his hands came out of, a message has been scraped into the paint. Meet me here at 3 p.m. Good time guaranteed. Skeletal letters. The bare bones of the desire of the last person to cottage there. A body could waste away waiting. There's an overpowering smell of lilies through the slatted window high up on the wall. Lilies and seaweed. The ocean begins 20 feet from the door of the toilets. Behind the building is the road at the side of which the lilies grow. You've never seen lilies like these. Scores of them, head height, pistols pointing. Meet me here at 3 p.m. Good time guaranteed. This is not a joke. A little way down the road, past the stand of lilies, is the fish and chip shop where for $6 Australian they will reach out the back into the ocean for a fish to gut and fry while you wait. It's closer to conjury than cookery. A girl with braces on her teeth batters a striped trumpeter for a neighbour she hasn't seen for all of 10 days. You been away? Sick. That's too bad. Yes. The trumpeter sizzles. She shakes the basket. To her left stand tanks of crab and lobster and fish that might have been invented by Andy Warhol. Sea water, the South Atlantic, laps under the wooden slatted mat overlaid on the concrete floor. In the visitor's book, a woman from Surrey in England has written that this girl could learn some manners. She is 16. She is not bored, not exactly. She looks like all 16-year-old girls working in chippies the world over. Only her hair smells of striped trumpeter, orange ruffy, blue morwong. At home, the television has 2 channels. The radio will not pick up FM. Small, large, or extra large, she asks. Large, the neighbour says, and the girl allows a scoop of chips to slide into its paper pocket. On the far side of the narrow peninsula from the toilets in the graveyard, which the girl passes twice a day, every day, lies Lucy Blizzard, who died a long time ago, aged 24. Beloved by all, the tombstone says. I envy Lucy Blizzard, even if I am a little afraid of her stillness, her never-any-moreness. In another part of the graveyard, it is whispered, is the grave of a British Army officer put to death for loving his Aboriginal manservant. Loving isn't the word the whisperers use. I have looked for the headstone without success. Time and the saltwater air have seen to it that the slate is wiped clean. Nobody can tell me why some names fade and some names look as fresh as the day they were cut, like Lucy Blizzard's. Nobody can tell me where the manservant was buried. If he was buried. I could not tell you any more what I am doing here, spending my days wandering between graves, smoking cigarettes outside the public toilets on the shingle shore of this island where rainforest and surf beaches and volcanoes and farmland are thrown together like the offcuts of continents. The mobile library rolls around every Wednesday. I am allowed 3 books and I ration myself to reading in the mornings and between the evening hours of 6 and 8. From 9, and for as long as I can afford, I drink beer in the town's only hotel, one side of whose bar is the town's only betting shop and satellite receiver. Races from Melbourne, Hong Kong, Dubai, horses and ponies and sulkies. I have seen camels racing, for God's sake, their child riders tied onto their mounts. Maybe there is a virtue in just 2 channels. There are no doors to lock in the public toilets. I walk in late at night and relieve myself against the last piece of porcelain this side of the South Pole with the sound of the waves running to shore at my back. I find myself wondering about whales and urine, about Lucy Blizzard and the executed army officer. I find myself wondering about home. Sometimes a coach will arrive and park outside the toilets. The passengers disembark and go inside, and when they come out, complaining there is no soap, get back on board and drive the short distance to the fish and chip shop. I try to ensure that I am on hand for these visitors. Distraction for me, rather than guidance for them. A guide is not required. The butcher shop is marked butcher, the souvenir shop, souvenirs. The chairlift signpost is the only other signpost in town. The chairlift is what they come here for. The chairlift is what I came for. From the top I was told, you can see halfway down the island. Rainforest and volcanoes and beaches out of office workers' dreams. Halfway is perhaps an exaggeration. Still, you can see smaller islands a day's boat journey away, even now. The soldiers and convicts who were the first European inhabitants spent 2 years on these islands before they were able to reach this part of Tasmania. Lucy Blizzard died 3 years after the first settlement was raised. Who knows why she was here? Poor Lucy Blizzard. Many of the names still legible on the headstones are the names I hear spoken every day in the town, but there are no Blizzards that I have heard. The girl in the fish and chip shop is called Lorna. A boy comes into the shop to see her one night when I am there. He wears a washed-out T-shirt, Guns N' Roses. I have seen him on the jetty where I stroll occasionally to watch the trawlers come and go with their pop-art catches. He bids Lorna good day. Lorna shakes the chip basket a little more energetically than normal. Small, large, or extra large, she asks me. I start into my meal before I am anywhere near the house. I have finished 2 of my 3 books and it's only Saturday. I am going to the hotel early tonight. I look back down the road and in the lighted window of the fish and chip shop I see Lorna and the boy in the Guns N' Roses T-shirt facing one another across the chrome countertop. A long time ago, I lost a bet with my sister about the forename of the man this island was named for. Abel was the correct answer, the Bible's first murder victim. Tasmania was scarcely more than an idea to me then, and not a very pleasant one at that. My sister left home at 16, 26 years ago. We had a postcard, maybe 25 years ago. A koala up a eucalyptus tree. Don't worry, my sister wrote. I'm doing fine. Letter to follow. My parents set the postcard behind the clock on the mantelpiece, but no letter ever followed. My parents are dead. Their car went off the road in Donegal last autumn. Drink had been taken. I put an appeal out in the Australian papers. I linked up by satellite to radio stations in Sydney and Perth. When the funeral was over and the last of the relatives had left, I got on the computer and booked myself an open ticket. That was October. Now it is May, and I am in Tasmania. The man who once threatened to kill my brother was here on a World Bible College bus tour. I found this out some days after I had seen him leave the stall of unrequited lust. I was in the hotel. A guy I had seen once or twice before, half a nose, no thumb on his left hand, started up a conversation. It was my accent, he said. Yes, same as several of the men on the bus tour. My brother was killed by someone else in the end. It was the way of the world in which he moved. There was never any shortage of people willing to point a finger or to pull a trigger. My brother was not a good man. I don't know if my sister knows he is dead. It was a famous case for a week or 2 back home. My mother said my father never recovered. My father said my mother never did. There's so much shame where I come from. Shame and prison conversions. In Melbourne, I found a woman in the phone book with my sister's name. I called at the address above a Vietnamese restaurant. A boy answered, 13, 14, in a sleeveless rugby jersey. The woman with my sister's name was the boy's mother. She was at work. It was mid-evening. I didn't bother asking about his father. Tell her, I said. Tell her. The boy wanted to close the door. Yes? Tell her I'll call another time. I waited in the restaurant below the flat. An elderly man entered, pieces of cards 6 by 4 in one hand. The cards had the names of popular songs written on them in red biro and had been wound around many times with clear tape. If you paid the man $1, he would sing you any 2 of the songs. I only had a 5. He sang at my shoulder the entire time I was eating. Actually, he sang me 11 songs. I hadn't specified which I wanted. Random selection, Phil Collins, Matt Monro. The freebie was Eddie Cochran. Look up in the sky, way up the north. There are 3 new stars brightly shining forth. They're shining oh so bright from heaven above. Gee, we're gonna miss you. Everybody sends their love. As I was paying the bill, I saw 2 women turn into the doorway leading to the flats above the restaurant. One was too young, and the other... Well, how could anybody be sure after 26 years? Beyond all reasonable doubt, sure. There was a brochure in the vestibule of my guest house with a picture on the front of this town and its chairlift. I was open to suggestion. I will in time perhaps persuade myself it was no more than suggestion what befell me last night. Suggestion laced with strong drink. I had been in the hotel too long before I stopped into the toilets. As I stood there, my head resting on the tiles, filled with the smell of lilies, I knew it was not just the hotel I had been too long in. It was the easiest thing in the world I was suddenly so tired of to walk out of the toilets across the 20 feet of shingle shore and into the sea. A stretch of the legs, my father used to say. I said aloud. The sea was still and as cold as clay. With every step, I seemed to shrink a little more. I imagined somewhere inside me a single point of light, the light that entered my eyes the moment I was born. I was walking out, and I was walking in towards that light. A step beyond that, nothing but black. Then the sand went from under me, and my head, without my willing it, pulled in the opposite direction, and where before there had been scarcely a ripple, I saw her rushing towards me, her arms outstretched, her hair a wild froth. All those centuries of stillness unleashed. She gathered me into her, pulling me under, and for a moment then, I was looking into the eyes of Lucy Blizzard. They went on forever. I opened my mouth. Take me, I wanted to say, but I felt her fingers on my lips closing them. I felt, as she set me down on the shingle, beloved. The hotel, the fish and chip shop, the graveyard, the toilets, not the kind of place to end your life in, but to live in, for now. There is another graffiti on the back of the stall door. Practice acts of random kindness. This morning, I bought a bar of soap and left it by the wash-hand basin. Simple, the label says. This afternoon, I will walk to the graveyard with a lily for Lucy Blizzard.